I lost $50,000 following my parents' financial advice. It wasn't because they wanted to hurt me. They genuinely believed they were passing down financial wisdom that would protect me. But what if the money lessons we've been taught are actually preventing us from building wealth? Today I'm exposing 5 financial truths that worked for previous generations but are silently sabotaging your financial future. My $50,000 mistake, the high cost of old-school financial wisdom. I want to share something with you that I'm honestly a bit embarrassed about. For years, I followed money advice that ended up costing me over $50,000 in potential wealth. And the worst part? I thought I was being smart with my money the entire time. When I landed my first real job after college, my parents sat me down for the talk. Not that talk, the money talk. Always keep your money safe in a savings account, they told me with absolute certainty. The stock market is basically gambling, and investments can disappear overnight. Banks are guaranteed by the government. It made perfect sense at the time. My parents grew up in an era when savings accounts paid 5 to 7% interest. They'd seen friends lose money in market crashes and economic downturns. Their advice came from a place of genuine care and the financial reality they knew. So I dutifully followed their guidance. For nearly 8 years, I proudly watched my savings account grow with each paycheck. I'd check my balance and feel that rush of satisfaction seeing the numbers climb higher each month. $10,000, $25,000, eventually reaching $40,000. I felt financially responsible, mature, and like I was winning at adulting. What I didn't realize was that my money was actually shrinking in value every single day. While my account balance showed growth, inflation was silently eating away at my purchasing power like termites in the foundation of a house. During those 8 years, inflation averaged about 2.5% annually. Meanwhile, my high-yield savings account was paying a pathetic 0.5% interest. Let me break down what that actually meant for my money. Each year, my $40,000 was effectively losing 2% of its value. That's $800 of purchasing power vanishing annually. Over 8 years, that's $6,400 gone. But the real damage came from opportunity cost, what I could have earned if I'd invested differently. During the same period, a basic S&P 500 index fund returned an average of 10% annually. If I had simply put that money into a low-cost index fund instead of my savings account, my $40,000 would have grown to approximately $85,000. The difference? Over $50,000 in missed gains. That's not spare change. That's a down payment on a house, a year's salary for many people, or enough to start a small business. And here's the kicker. I thought I was being financially responsible the entire time. I was literally patting myself on the back for making a $50,000 mistake. My story isn't unique. Millions of millennials and Gen Z are following financial advice handed down from parents and grandparents without questioning whether it still applies to today's economic reality. The problem isn't that our parents gave us bad advice. It's that they gave us advice that worked perfectly well in their economic era, but has become dangerously outdated in ours. Think about it. Our parents grew up in a completely different financial landscape. When my dad started his career in the 1980s, a basic savings account paid interest rates that actually beat inflation. Bank CDs were offering double-digit returns. College tuition could be covered with a summer job. A single income could support a family and buy a house. Today, bank interest rates are microscopic. College costs have exploded. Housing prices in many areas have outpaced wage growth by factors of 5 or 10. Pensions have largely disappeared. Job security has been replaced with at-will employment. The gig economy has transformed how work functions. It's like our parents handed us a detailed map for navigating a city that no longer exists. The streets have changed, landmarks have been replaced, and we're trying to follow directions to places that have moved or disappeared entirely. What's even more dangerous is how we internalize these outdated money beliefs without even realizing it. They become part of our financial operating system, running in the background and influencing decisions without our conscious awareness. I didn't question my savings strategy for years because saving was portrayed as inherently virtuous. It felt responsible, conservative, and safe. Meanwhile, investing was portrayed as risky, complicated, and potentially foolish. These weren't logical conclusions I reached after careful analysis. They were inherited beliefs I absorbed from my family's financial worldview. The turning point for me came when a friend, actually someone with less income than me, mentioned his investment returns. I was shocked to learn he had already built significantly more wealth than I had despite earning less. That single conversation led me to question everything I thought I knew about money. It sparked a financial awakening that completely transformed my relationship with money. I spent the next few months devouring books, podcasts, and courses on modern financial strategies. I learned about index fund investing, the true impact of inflation, the tax advantages of retirement accounts, and dozens of other financial concepts my parents had never mentioned. The most mind-blowing part was realizing that many of the risky strategies I'd been warned against were actually considerably less risky over the long term than what I had been doing. Keeping all my money in cash, exposed to inflation, was actually the risky move. I just couldn't see the risk because it was happening silently, without dramatic crashes or obvious losses. This isn't about blaming our parents. They shared what worked for them based on their lived experience. My parents helped me in countless ways, and their intentions were pure. But the financial rules have fundamentally changed, and failing to update our financial playbook is costing our generation trillions in collective wealth. The question we need to ask ourselves is, what other financial truths might we be clinging to that no longer serve us in today's economy? What if the conventional financial wisdom you've been following is actually holding you back from building real wealth? That's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. I've identified 5 major financial myths that many of us still believe, outdated money truths that made perfect sense for our parents' generation but are actually wealth killers today. For each of these financial lies, I'll explain why they made sense historically, why they're dangerous in today's economy, and most importantly, what modern alternatives will actually help you build wealth in the current financial landscape. And let's start with that first big lie I fell for. The idea that keeping your money safe in a bank account is the responsible thing to do. When I look back at my $50,000 mistake, I realized the root cause was misunderstanding what safe really means when it comes to money. Because sometimes what feels safe in the short term is actually the riskiest move over the long run. Lie number 1. Save everything in a bank account. Here's a mind-bending question. What if the financial advice that feels most comfortable and safe is actually the riskiest move you could make with your money? The numbers don't lie, and they tell a story about bank accounts that might completely change how you think about playing it safe. Did you know that the average American has over $12,000 sitting in savings accounts right now? That's $12,000 that's actually shrinking in purchasing power every single day. While you think you're being responsible by keeping your money safe in the bank, inflation is quietly robbing you blind, and most people never even notice the theft. Let's get real about what's happening to your money in that savings account. When our parents and grandparents told us to save everything in the bank, they weren't lying to us. They were sharing advice that worked perfectly in their economic reality. Back then, banks offered interest rates that not only kept pace with inflation, but often exceeded it by a comfortable margin. But that world is gone. Today's savings accounts are like those buckets you used as a kid that had tiny holes you didn't notice until all the water had drained out. Every dollar you put in is slowly, invisibly leaking value. Here's what's really happening. When you deposit $10,000 in a typical savings account today, you might earn around 0.5% interest if you're lucky. Meanwhile, inflation, the rising cost of everything from groceries to housing, has been averaging around 2 to 3% annually in recent years, with spikes much higher than that. This creates what financial experts call a negative real return. Your money is literally losing purchasing power while sitting in that safe account. Let me show you how this plays out over time. If you put $10,000 in a savings account earning 0.5% interest, while inflation runs at 2.5%, after 5 years, your account balance will show about $10,250. Sounds like you made money, right? But in terms of what that money can actually buy, its real value has shrunk to about $8,850. After 10 years, your account shows $10,510, but its real purchasing power is down to about $7,830. And after 20 years, your $10,000 has grown to $11,050 in your account. but it can only buy what $6,130 could have bought when you first deposited it. That's the insidious nature of this first big money lie. The number in your account goes up slightly, making you feel like you're doing the right thing, while the actual value of your money is being silently eroded year after year. Think about it this way. If someone told you they had an investment that was guaranteed to lose 2% of its value every year, would you put your money there? Of course not. But that's exactly what millions of Americans are doing with their savings accounts without realizing it. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any money in savings accounts. Having some cash readily available for emergencies is absolutely essential. But treating your savings account as your primary wealth-building tool is a recipe for financial disaster in today's economy. This advice to keep everything in savings worked brilliantly for previous generations. When our parents were starting out, banks were offering interest rates that made savings accounts genuinely profitable. There were periods in the 1980s when you could get savings rates of 5 to 7% or even higher, while bank CDs, certificates of deposit, sometimes paid double-digit returns. With inflation often lower than these rates, money in the bank actually grew in real terms. This created a generation of people who experienced firsthand that banks were safe places where money actually grew. Of course, they passed this wisdom down to us. It was true in their lifetime. The problem is that the economic conditions that made this advice valid have completely disappeared. Today's financial landscape demands a completely different approach. The truth is that keeping all your long-term savings in a bank account isn't just missing out on growth opportunities. It's actively making you poorer through the guaranteed negative real return we just calculated. So what's the alternative? Where should your money go if not to the bank? This is where things get exciting. Modern financial markets offer several alternatives that have consistently outpaced inflation over the long term. Index funds, which simply track major market indices like the S&P 500, have historically provided average annual returns of about 7 to 10%. That's significantly higher than inflation, meaning your money is actually growing in real terms, not shrinking. For those who want some government-backed security with better inflation protection, there are I-bonds, which offer a fixed rate plus an inflation rate that adjusts every 6 months. These bonds are specifically designed to protect against inflation, making them a solid choice for part of your savings. High-yield savings accounts and money market accounts also offer substantially better interest rates than traditional savings accounts, sometimes 10 to 20 times higher, while still providing the FDIC insurance and liquidity that makes savings accounts attractive. The key insight here is understanding the difference between nominal returns, the percentage number you see, and real returns, what your money can actually buy after inflation. Once you grasp this critical distinction, you'll never look at your savings account the same way again. I remember the moment this really clicked for me. I was showing a friend my impressive savings account balance, expecting praise for my financial responsibility. Instead, she asked me a simple question. Do you know how much purchasing power you've lost keeping all that money in cash? I had no idea what she was talking about. That conversation led me down a rabbit hole of financial education that completely transformed how I think about money. What's fascinating about this particular money lie is how comforting it feels. There's something deeply reassuring about seeing your money in a bank account, knowing it's safe and available whenever you need it. The problem is that this emotional comfort comes at an extremely high cost. The slow, steady erosion of your wealth that you never actually see happening. It's like the old story of the frog in slowly heating water. If you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out immediately. But if you put it in cool water and slowly increase the temperature, it doesn't notice the danger until it's too late. Inflation is that slowly heating water, and your savings account is keeping you from noticing the danger until years of wealth-building potential have been lost. The most frustrating part? Banks know exactly what they're doing. They take your money, pay you minimal interest, and then turn around and invest it in all sorts of assets that generate much higher returns. The difference between what they pay you and what they earn is pure profit for them. They're benefiting from your financial education gap, counting on you not understanding the true cost of that safe savings account. So what's the solution? How do you break free from this wealth-draining cycle? The answer lies in education and strategic allocation. Understanding investment alternatives, learning about risk management, and allocating your money appropriately based on your time horizons and goals. For short-term needs and emergency funds, high-yield savings accounts make sense. For medium-term goals, 3 to 5 years out, a mix of bonds and conservative investments might be appropriate. And for long-term wealth building, retirement, financial independence, vehicles like index funds, ETFs, and other growth-oriented investments have consistently outperformed inflation over time. Financial experts emphasize that while savings accounts are essential for liquidity and emergency funds, they should not be the primary vehicle for long-term wealth accumulation. Instead, diversifying into stocks, bonds, and other investment vehicles is crucial for maintaining and growing wealth over time. Lie number 2. Job security is everything. Just as diversifying your investments protects your wealth, diversifying your income sources protects your livelihood. When 10,000 secure tech workers lost their jobs in a single day last year, how many do you think wished they'd built a side hustle or passive income stream before their steady paycheck vanished overnight? The financial advice many of us received growing up sounds eerily familiar. Find a good company, work hard, stay loyal, and they'll take care of you. This mantra, passed down from previous generations, wasn't just suggesting a path to success. It was promising security. Our parents and grandparents genuinely believed that corporate loyalty would be rewarded with lifetime employment, benefits, and a comfortable retirement. And why wouldn't they? They lived in an era when a 30-year career at one company wasn't just possible, it was expected. Gold watches for retirement were actually given out. Pensions were real. Companies like IBM were famous for their no-layoff policies. This wasn't just a nice idea. It was reality for millions of workers. But that world doesn't exist anymore. Today, job security has become an outdated concept, like rotary phones or VHS tapes. Traditional companies that once represented the pinnacle of employment stability have crumbled under economic pressures. Just look at what's happened recently with industry giants like General Motors and Boeing, who have announced significant layoffs affecting thousands of employees in recent years. These weren't struggling startups. These were the very definition of safe employment. I saw this firsthand during the 2008 recession when my friend Mark lost his secure banking job after 12 years with the same company. He had done everything right, climbed the corporate ladder, received excellent performance reviews, even relocated twice for the company. None of that mattered when his entire department was eliminated overnight. The company he had devoted his career to handed him a severance package and showed him the door. What makes this shift even more dramatic is how quickly it's happened. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that today's average worker will hold 12+ different jobs throughout their career. That's not job hopping by choice. It's the new normal in an economy where company loyalty has become a one-way street. But here's what's really scary about clinging to the old job security model. It creates dangerous financial vulnerability. When your entire livelihood depends on a single source of income, you're essentially putting all your financial eggs in one basket. The very opposite of what financial experts recommend for investments. Think about it this way. If you invested 100% of your money in a single company's stock, financial advisors would call you reckless. Yet many of us depend on a single company for 100% of our income without questioning the risk. The forces reshaping job security aren't temporary fluctuations. They're fundamental, structural changes. Technology has eliminated entire categories of jobs while creating new ones that didn't exist a decade ago. Globalization means you're not just competing with workers in your city, but potentially with talented people worldwide who might do your job for less. Automation continues to transform industries at an accelerating pace. Oxford economists predict that 47% of current American jobs could be automated within the next 2 decades. Even traditionally secure fields like law, medicine, and accounting are seeing parts of their work taken over by artificial intelligence. The gig economy has fundamentally altered the employer-employee relationship. Companies have discovered they can save money by working with independent contractors instead of hiring full-time employees. This flexibility benefits businesses, but shifts the risk to workers who no longer receive benefits, paid time off, or any guarantee of consistent work. Economic downturns have become more frequent and more severe. Since 2000, we've experienced the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, and the pandemic recession, each causing massive unemployment spikes. When companies face pressure, loyalty to employees is often the first thing sacrificed to protect the bottom line. Even if you're currently employed at a seemingly stable company, the landscape can shift overnight. Companies that appear healthy can collapse with stunning speed. Remember Lehman Brothers? Blockbuster? Toys R Us? Each had thousands of secure employees who discovered their stability was an illusion. My colleague Sarah learned this lesson when her pharmaceutical company was acquired by a larger competitor. Despite being a top performer for 8 years, she was let go in the redundancy purge that followed. Her specialized skills, developed over years with that specific company, suddenly became her greatest liability. She was too specialized, too expensive, and too easily replaced by someone at the acquiring company who already knew their systems. The data backs up these anecdotes. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that average job tenure has decreased to just 4.1 years, down from 4.6 years a decade ago. For Millennials and Gen Z workers, it's even lower, about 2.8 years. This isn't because younger workers are job hopping. It's because the workplace has fundamentally changed. This shortening job tenure creates a cascade of financial vulnerabilities. With benefits increasingly tied to employment, losing a job often means losing health insurance, retirement contributions, and other critical financial safeguards exactly when you need them most. The risk is even greater for specialized professionals. The more specialized your skills, the higher your salary might be, but also the narrower your employment options if your industry faces disruption. Just ask former newspaper editors, coal miners, or travel agents how quickly an entire career path can become endangered. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is that most people don't have adequate financial buffers to weather job loss. According to the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected $400 expense. Now imagine losing your entire income stream for 3 to 6 months while seeking new employment. Traditional financial advice tells us to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved for emergencies. But in a rapidly changing job market, is that really enough? What happens when finding a comparable position takes 9 months? Or when your entire industry contracts, forcing you to retrain for a new career? I've seen friends drain their emergency funds, then their retirement accounts, then slide into credit card debt during extended periods of unemployment. The financial damage can take years or even decades to repair. So if the concept of job security has fundamentally changed, what's the alternative? What's the new form of security in this uncertain landscape? The answer isn't finding an even safer job, because such a thing doesn't exist anymore. The answer is creating your own security through income diversification. Just as diversifying investments protects your wealth against market volatility, diversifying income sources protects your livelihood against employment volatility. When one income stream dries up, others continue flowing, preventing financial catastrophe and giving you breathing room to adapt. This isn't just about having a side hustle, though that's certainly part of it. It's about fundamentally rethinking the relationship between work and income. The new paradigm of financial security comes from having multiple, independent sources of money flowing into your life. Think about it. If you lose your main job but have 3 other income streams generating even a fraction of your primary income, you're in a radically different position than someone who loses their only income source. You have options. You have time. You have leverage. And that leverage extends beyond just financial security. When you have multiple income sources, you gain something even more valuable: freedom. Freedom to leave a toxic workplace. Freedom to negotiate better terms. Freedom to take risks that could lead to even greater opportunities. That's the real tragedy of the job security above all mindset. It doesn't just leave you financially vulnerable, it leaves you trapped. When your entire livelihood depends on a single employer, your decision-making becomes constrained by fear. You might stay in a dead-end position, accept unfair treatment, or avoid building multiple income streams, the new job security. Breaking free from that fear-based mindset isn't just possible, it's becoming the new normal for an entire generation. Millennials are saving nearly double what many expected, with statistics showing an average of $12,004.87 saved in 2024. And they're doing this despite facing unprecedented economic challenges. Their secret isn't extreme frugality. It's building income streams their parents never imagined possible. Meet Sarah, a marketing manager who seemed to have it all: stable corporate job, 401k, and even the coveted corner office. When her company announced a 30% workforce reduction in 2020, her colleagues panicked. But Sarah, she barely flinched. 3 years earlier, she had started a weekend photography business that gradually grew to match half her corporate salary. She also had a small portfolio of dividend stocks and a monetized blog about industry trends. When the layoffs came, Sarah wasn't just financially prepared, she was practically immune to the impact. This is the power of income diversification, the financial equivalent of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Think about it. When your entire financial life depends on a single paycheck, you're essentially one decision away from disaster. One management change, one economic downturn, one industry disruption, and suddenly your entire financial foundation crumbles. But when you build multiple income streams, you create a financial safety net that's virtually impossible to tear completely. If one source takes a hit, the others keep cash flowing while you recover or pivot. It's like having multiple backup generators during a power outage. You might experience a flicker, but you won't be left in the dark. Let's break down the 4 main types of income streams you can develop. First, there's active income, money you earn through direct work. This isn't just your main job. It includes freelance work, consulting, teaching, or any side hustle where you're trading time for money. The beauty of secondary active income is that it often builds different skills than your primary job, making you more versatile and valuable in the marketplace. Second, we have passive income, money that flows to you with minimal ongoing effort. This includes royalties from creative work, affiliate marketing commissions, or automated digital product sales. The initial setup requires significant effort, but once established, these income streams can generate revenue while you sleep. Third, there's portfolio income, money generated from investments. This includes stock dividends, bond interest, and returns from real estate investment trusts. What makes portfolio income powerful is that it works entirely independently of your time and effort. Fourth, there's business income, profits from businesses where you might work on the operation rather than in it. This could be a small e-commerce store with virtual assistants handling daily operations, a rental property managed by a property management company, or even a small business with employees. The digital economy has democratized access to these multiple income streams in ways our parents couldn't imagine. With just a smartphone and internet connection, you can now tap into global opportunities that didn't exist even 15 years ago. Consider these accessible entry points. A corporate accountant who builds spreadsheet templates and sells them on Etsy for $29 each, generating an extra $1,500 monthly. A high school teacher who creates and sells lesson plans online, making an additional $800 per month. A nurse who reviews medical products on YouTube and earns $1,200 monthly through ad revenue and sponsorships. An IT professional who built a subscription-based tool for small businesses that brings in $2,000 monthly with almost no ongoing work. None of these required quitting a day job or making massive life changes. They started as experiments, passion projects, or simple side hustles that grew into significant income sources. Even small additional streams can dramatically reduce your financial vulnerability. Let's say your monthly expenses are $4,000 and your primary job pays $5,000 after taxes. Losing that job would immediately put you in crisis mode. But what if you had 3 additional streams bringing in $1,000 each? Suddenly, losing your main job would still leave you with $3,000 monthly, enough to cover 75% of your expenses while you figured out your next move. The math is compelling, but the psychological benefits are even more powerful. When you know you have multiple sources of income, your relationship with your primary employer fundamentally changes. You make decisions from a position of confidence rather than fear. You can negotiate more effectively, turn down unreasonable requests, and even take career risks that someone dependent on a single paycheck never could. So how do you practically build these additional streams while working full-time? It starts with a systematic approach. First, inventory your existing skills, interests, and resources. What do you know that others would pay to learn? What do you own that could generate income? What problems can you solve that others struggle with? Second, start with low-hanging fruit, income streams that leverage your existing skills and require minimal startup costs. If you're a graphic designer by day, creating templates or offering quick turnaround projects on weekends might be your easiest entry point. Third, dedicate specific time blocks to developing your additional streams. Even just 5 to 10 hours weekly can build significant momentum over time. Treat these hours as sacred appointments with your financial future. Fourth, reinvest early profits to automate or outsource parts of the process. This creates a virtuous cycle where each stream becomes more passive over time, freeing you to develop new ones or expand existing ones. Finally, diversify across different types of income streams. Don't just create multiple active income sources that all require your direct time. Mix in some portfolio income and work toward more passive options as you grow. What's fascinating is how this approach is being embraced by younger generations. The research shows a significant shift in how millennials approach their finances, with many prioritizing multiple income sources over traditional job security. This isn't just about survival. It's about creating options and opportunities that previous generations couldn't imagine. Companies are taking notice too. Many employers are now offering financial wellness programs that include education about diversifying income. They recognize that financially secure employees are more productive and engaged. As one human resources director put it, "We'd rather have employees who stay because they want to, not because they're financially trapped." The concept of soft saving among Gen Z reveals another fascinating trend. While they value immediate experiences, they're simultaneously building diverse income portfolios that align with their lifestyle preferences. They're rejecting the false choice between enjoying today and building for tomorrow by creating income streams that do both. This approach to income diversification creates something far more valuable than just financial security. It creates freedom to make career choices based on fulfillment rather than fear, freedom to walk away from toxic work environments, freedom to pursue opportunities that align with your values and goals. What's the shocking truth about job security that could change your entire career path? It's that real security doesn't come from desperately clinging to one income source. It comes from building so many sources that no single loss can devastate you. The most secure person in today's economy isn't the one with 30 years at the same company. It's the one who has deliberately built a diverse portfolio of income streams that can weather any economic storm. Lie number 3. All debt is bad. Remember that pearl of wisdom your grandparents shared about avoiding debt like the plague? Never borrow money unless it's an emergency. While coming from a place of love, this black and white view of debt might actually be preventing you from building serious wealth. What if I told you that avoiding all debt could be the very reason you're struggling to get ahead financially? That's right. The blanket, all debt is bad mentality might be one of the biggest obstacles standing between you and financial freedom. Let's face it, most of us grew up hearing horror stories about credit card debt spiraling out of control or relatives who lost everything after taking out loans they couldn't repay. These cautionary tales created a generation that's debt-phobic, seeing all borrowing as equally dangerous. But here's the truth. There's a massive difference between destructive debt and strategic debt that our parents never explained. Think about how we categorize food. Some foods are unhealthy and damage your body, while others provide nutrition and help you thrive. Debt works exactly the same way. Some types of debt are like financial fast food. They taste good momentarily, but leave you broke and sick later. Other types are like nutrient-rich superfoods that actually build your financial health over time. So what does destructive debt look like? This is the stuff that should absolutely terrify you. Credit cards carrying 20% interest rates that you can't pay off monthly. Payday loans with predatory 400% APRs designed to trap you in cycles of borrowing. Auto loans for luxury vehicles that depreciate faster than you can make payments. These debt instruments aren't just bad. They're wealth destroyers that can set you back decades financially. But then there's strategic debt, the kind that wealthy people understand and use regularly to amplify their net worth. This is debt that helps you acquire appreciating assets or increase your earning potential. Think of a reasonable mortgage on a property in a growing area, or a low-interest business loan that funds equipment that will generate 5x the loan amount in revenue. These debts aren't draining your wealth, they're building it. Take my friend Marcus, for example. While his peers were proudly declaring themselves debt-free, while renting apartments and missing investment opportunities, Marcus strategically used a $250,000 mortgage to purchase a 4-unit apartment building. The rental income not only covered his mortgage payment, but provided an extra $800 monthly. 5 years later, not only had his tenants paid down a significant portion of his loan, but the property had appreciated by $120,000. By strategically using debt, Marcus built over $200,000 in equity, while his debt-free friends had nothing to show but rent receipts. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Inflation actually makes certain fixed-rate debts cheaper over time. When you lock in a 30-year mortgage at 5%, and inflation runs at 3 to 4% annually, the real value of your debt is actually shrinking every year. You're paying back dollars that are worth less than the dollars you borrowed. This is exactly why wealthy investors often prefer to use strategic debt rather than their own cash. They understand that inflation is quietly eroding their debt while their assets appreciate. The concept of bezel, the fictional wealth created by excessive debt, is important to understand here. When debt levels rise faster than the economy's ability to service them, we create distortions that eventually lead to financial distress. This happens when people take on destructive debt they can't afford, not when they use strategic debt that generates more value than it costs. Younger generations are catching on to this nuanced understanding of debt. They're increasingly recognizing the importance of financial literacy and the strategic use of debt as they navigate today's complex economic landscape with high inflation and fluctuating interest rates. They're learning what their parents often didn't teach them. Debt can be a powerful tool when used correctly. So how do you determine whether a potential debt is destructive or strategic? Ask yourself these 4 questions before borrowing money. First, will this debt help me acquire an asset that's likely to increase in value? Property in growing areas, business equipment that generates revenue, or education that significantly increases your earning potential can all qualify. Second, does the math work? Calculate the total cost of the debt versus the potential return. If you're paying 5% interest on a loan, but the asset historically returns 8 to 10%, you're creating wealth, not destroying it. Third, what's your exit strategy? Strategic debt should have a clear payoff plan. Understand exactly how and when you'll eliminate the debt before taking it on. Finally, can you sleep at night? Even strategic debt carries risk. Be honest about your risk tolerance and don't take on leverage that will cause you anxiety, no matter how good the opportunity looks on paper. Let me be crystal clear. I'm not suggesting you max out credit cards or take loans you can't afford. Destructive high-interest consumer debt is absolutely toxic to your financial health. What I am saying is that avoiding all debt out of fear might be keeping you from building serious wealth. Consider a mortgage on a primary home. With today's fixed rates, you're locking in your housing cost for 30 years, while rents continue to rise with inflation. Your loan balance stays the same or decreases as you pay it down, but the property's value typically increases over time. Meanwhile, a portion of each payment builds your equity. Compare that to renting, where 100% of your payment builds your landlord's wealth instead of yours. Or think about a small business loan at 7% that allows you to purchase equipment, generating a 25% annual return on investment. Are you better off avoiding that debt or using it to multiply your income? The math clearly favors strategic borrowing in this scenario. Even car loans can be strategic in certain circumstances. If reliable transportation allows you to earn significantly more income than you could otherwise, and you choose a reasonably priced vehicle with manageable payments, that debt might be creating more wealth than it's costing. What's fascinating is watching how societal attitudes toward debt are shifting. Many financial experts now advise young people to stop pursuing the debt-free lifestyle as their primary goal and instead focus on building net worth, even if that means carrying strategic debt. This represents a fundamental shift from the simplistic, all debt is bad, thinking many of us were raised with. The wealthiest individuals and companies in the world understand this principle intuitively. Apple, one of the richest companies on earth with massive cash reserves, still uses debt financing for various projects. Why? Because they understand that strategic debt can create more value than it costs, especially in a low-interest environment. So what's the takeaway here? The critical difference between destructive and strategic debt is whether the debt increases or decreases your net worth over time. Destructive debt funds consumption or purchases that rapidly lose value, while strategic debt funds assets that appreciate or generate income exceeding the cost of borrowing. The next time you find yourself automatically avoiding debt, because that's what responsible people do, pause and ask whether this particular debt would be destructive or strategic. Are you avoiding borrowing out of wisdom or out of fear? Are you missing wealth-building opportunities because of overly simplistic financial rules? Lie number 4. You need a degree to succeed. Just as we've taken a fresh look at the role of debt in financial success, let's tackle another sacred cow that's keeping millions financially stunted. Did you know that over 30% of today's millionaires never completed college? While your parents insisted that expensive degree was your only ticket to success, a growing segment of the wealthy skipped traditional education entirely and still built impressive fortunes. You need a college degree to succeed might be the most expensive lie your parents ever told you. Let's be clear, they weren't trying to mislead you. For their generation, a college degree was genuinely the golden ticket to middle-class prosperity and job security. But the financial equation of higher education has changed dramatically, while this advice hasn't. When your parents attended college, tuition costs were manageable enough that summer jobs could actually make a dent in paying for school. Fast forward to today, and the average cost of a four-year degree has skyrocketed to between $100,000 and $200,000 depending on the institution. That's a price tag that's grown at twice the rate of inflation. Meanwhile, the return on that massive investment has been shrinking. Studies show that nearly 40% of recent college graduates are working in jobs that don't even require a degree. Think about that, 4 years of your life and potentially 6 figures of debt for a credential that employers might not even care about. But what about the salary advantage? Doesn't a degree still translate to higher earnings? While college graduates do earn more on average than non-graduates, that gap is narrowing rapidly in many fields. The dirty secret is that this average includes high-earning professions like doctors and lawyers that genuinely require specialized education. Remove those outliers, and the picture changes dramatically. Let's look at some real examples of high-paying careers that don't require traditional degrees. Software developers can earn six-figure salaries with self-taught skills and a strong portfolio. Digital marketers, UX designers, and web developers command impressive salaries based on demonstrable skills rather than formal education. Sales professionals, real estate agents, and many skilled trades offer paths to six-figure incomes without requiring a single college credit. What's really interesting is how quickly major employers are adapting to this reality. Companies like Google, Apple, IBM, and Tesla have dropped degree requirements for many positions. Google's former SVP of People Operations, Laszlo Bock, famously stated that GPA and college credentials are worthless as criteria for hiring and poor predictors of job performance. Instead, these companies are focusing on skills, portfolios, and demonstrated ability. They've recognized what many of us haven't yet, that the correlation between having a degree and being good at your job is weaker than we've been led to believe. This shift is happening alongside another revolutionary change: the democratization of education. The truth is, acquiring high-value skills has never been more accessible than it is today. The rise of online learning platforms and self-education resources has made it easier than ever to acquire skills that are relevant to the job market. Platforms like Coursera and Udemy offer courses that can lead to certifications in high-demand areas, further enhancing employability. Think about what this means. For a tiny fraction of the cost of a traditional degree, you can learn practical, in-demand skills from industry professionals on your own schedule. You can build actual portfolios and demonstrate real competence while your peers are sitting in lecture halls accumulating debt. There's also the massive opportunity cost that traditional education demands. Those 4 or more years spent in college represent time you could be gaining real-world experience, building a business, or earning income. By the time a traditional student graduates at 22, someone who skipped college could have 4 years of work experience, multiple income streams, and 0 student debt. I'm not saying college is worthless for everyone. Certain careers like medicine, law, and engineering still greatly benefit from structured educational pathways. And college does provide valuable networking opportunities and personal growth experiences. But we need to be honest about what we're buying. Are you pursuing a degree because it's truly the best path to your specific career goals? Or are you doing it because that's what successful people do? Are you choosing a major based on potential ROI? Or because it sounds interesting without any thought to future earnings? The economic reality is harsh but simple. Taking on $100,000 plus in debt for a degree with limited earning potential is often a terrible financial decision. Yet millions make this choice without seriously considering alternatives because of outdated advice from well-meaning parents. Let's talk about those alternatives, because there are many paths to financial success that don't involve traditional college. Trade schools and technical programs offer focused training for careers with strong demand and solid pay. Think electricians, plumbers, and HVAC specialists. Many of these professionals earn more than the average college graduate, with far less educational debt. Coding bootcamps have emerged as accelerated pathways into tech careers, often with job placement rates that rival or exceed traditional computer science degrees. Entrepreneurship and business ownership remain viable paths that require skills and grit rather than formal credentials. Many of today's most successful business owners either skipped college or dropped out. Apprenticeships are making a comeback, offering earn-while-you-learn opportunities in fields ranging from advanced manufacturing to healthcare. The self-directed learning path combines online courses, certifications, and portfolio building to demonstrate competence to employers without formal credentials. Each of these alternatives offers something traditional college often doesn't: faster entry into the workforce, practical skills training, and significantly lower costs. I want to address the cultural resistance many feel when questioning the value of college. There's often a sense that skipping higher education means settling for less or giving up on ambition. This couldn't be further from the truth. Choosing an alternative path isn't lowering your standards. It's being strategic about how you invest your time and money to achieve your goals. The reality is that for many career paths, employers care far more about what you can do than where, or if, you went to school. They want to see demonstrated skills, relevant experience, and the ability to solve problems, not just a framed diploma. This shift toward skills-based hiring represents a democratization of opportunity. When employers hire based on ability rather than credentials, it opens doors for talented individuals regardless of their educational background or financial means. So what's the real calculus you should be doing when deciding whether college is worth it? Start by researching the specific career path you're interested in. What's the actual requirement for entry-level positions? What's the salary range? How much debt would you need to take on? What's the ROI timeline? Then honestly assess the alternatives. Could you acquire the necessary skills through other means? Are there certification programs or boot camps that would get you there faster? Could you start at entry level and work your way up while learning on the job? For some careers and individuals, the traditional college path will still make sense. But for many others, there are faster, cheaper, and more direct routes to financial success. This isn't about dismissing education. It's about being strategic about how you acquire it. The goal isn't to avoid learning. It's to avoid unnecessary debt and wasted time. True education is about acquiring knowledge and skills that create skills versus credentials, the new path to career success. The old rulebook of climbing career ladders with fancy degrees is being tossed out the window. Major companies like Google, Apple, and IBM have already torn up the degree requirement playbook, focusing instead on what you can demonstrably do rather than where you learn to do it. This shift isn't just changing who gets hired. It's completely rewriting the rules of career advancement. Let's be real. The skills-based hiring revolution isn't some far-off future trend. It's happening right now, transforming industries across the board. Companies are increasingly recognizing that the traditional signals of talent, like that expensive framed diploma on your wall, often tell them very little about your actual ability to create value. Netflix's former chief talent officer Patty McCord put it perfectly when she said, "The best thing you can do is hire a person who's accomplished something similar to what you need done. Not someone who studied it, someone who's actually done it." This fundamental shift is happening because businesses have realized something crucial. Results matter more than credentials. Think about it. When was the last time you asked your plumber where they went to college? Probably never, because you care about whether they can fix your pipes, not if they can discuss 18th century literature. The same principle is now spreading through corporate America. Companies want employees who can solve problems, not just talk about solving them. They want people who can adapt to change, learn new skills quickly, and contribute value from day one. Look at what's happening in tech. Coding boot camps that last 12 to 16 weeks are producing graduates who land jobs at companies that previously only hired from elite computer science programs. These bootcamp grads aren't just getting hired. They're often outperforming their traditionally educated peers because they've been trained specifically on the skills needed in today's workplace. What we're witnessing is a democratization of opportunity. When companies hire based on skills rather than credentials, They open doors for talented individuals who may not have had access to traditional education paths. This includes people from diverse backgrounds, career changers, self-taught specialists, and those who simply learn better outside classroom environments. The data backs this up too. According to research, 90% of companies now report making better hiring decisions when they focus on skills over degrees. This isn't just changing who gets hired. It's completely revolutionizing how career advancement works. So what does this mean for you? It means the game has changed, and if you're still playing by the old rules, you're putting yourself at a serious disadvantage. The good news is that acquiring valuable skills has never been more accessible. Let's talk about the skills that are in highest demand right now. Skills you can learn without a traditional degree. Data analysis tops the list. Companies are drowning in data, but starving for insights. Learning how to use tools like SQL, Python, or even just advanced Excel can make you incredibly valuable. Digital marketing is another area where results speak louder than credentials. If you can demonstrate that you know how to drive traffic, convert leads, or build an audience, companies will fight to hire you, regardless of your educational background. Project management is a skill set that crosses almost every industry. The ability to coordinate resources, manage timelines, and deliver results is universally valuable. And guess what? You don't need a degree to prove you can do it. You need a track record of successful projects. User experience design combines creativity with analytical thinking and has become essential as businesses compete for attention in digital spaces. Many successful UX designers are self-taught or learn through targeted courses rather than four-year programs. But here's the critical part. It's not enough to just learn these skills. You need to prove you have them, which is where portfolio building comes in. This is the new credential, and it's far more powerful than a degree. A portfolio showcases your actual work, not just your theoretical knowledge. It provides tangible evidence of your capabilities. For a writer, this might be a collection of articles. For a designer, it's completed projects. For a data analyst, it could be visualizations and insights from public datasets. Aaron, a graphic designer with no formal education in the field, built a portfolio by redesigning logos for local businesses for free. Within 6 months, he had enough quality work to land a job at a marketing agency, beating out applicants with design degrees because his work spoke for itself. This approach works across fields. Software developers contribute to open-source projects. Marketers show growth metrics from personal projects or volunteer work. Writers publish on Medium or Start. Newsletters to demonstrate their communication skills. The key is understanding that employers today are more interested in what you've produced than in what classes you've taken. They want to see the problems you've solved, not the textbooks you've read. So how do you identify which skills to focus on in your specific field? Start by researching job postings for positions you'd like to have. Look for patterns in the requirements. What specific skills are mentioned most frequently? What tools or technologies keep appearing? Next, connect with people already working in those roles. LinkedIn makes this easier than ever. Ask them which skills have been most valuable in their careers and what they'd learn if they were starting over today. Industry reports and growth forecasts can also guide your focus. Skills in growing sectors naturally become more valuable over time. The World Economic Forum regularly publishes reports on skills of the future. These are gold mines for career planning. Once you've identified your target skills, it's time to acquire them efficiently. The traditional education model assumed you'd learn everything you need in a concentrated period, then apply it for decades. That model is dead. Today's reality demands continuous learning. Think about learning as an ongoing process rather than a one-time event. Set aside time each week specifically for skill development. Even just 5 hours weekly compounds dramatically over a year. Practical application accelerates learning far more effectively than passive consumption. Don't just watch tutorials, build projects. Don't just read about marketing, run campaigns. The gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application is where most learning fails. Did you know millennials are consulting financial advisors nearly a decade earlier than Gen X did? Not because they're more financially secure, but because they're navigating a completely different landscape? The same strategic approach applies to career development. Millennials start seeking career guidance at an average age of 29, compared to 38 for Generation X, because they recognize the rules have changed. What's fascinating is how this approach to skills-based career building creates exponentially more flexibility and earning potential than the traditional degree-then-job path. When you focus on building a diverse skill set rather than a single credential, you're no longer limited to a narrow career track. Consider someone who builds skills in video production, digital marketing, and data analysis. They could work in-house at a company's marketing department, freelance for multiple clients, start an agency, create and monetize their own content, or consult for businesses looking to build these capabilities. Each path offers different lifestyle benefits and income potentials. The compounding effect of continuously adding skills creates value that traditional education simply can't match. Each new skill you add doesn't just increase your value linearly. It multiplies it by creating new combinations. Someone who understands both design and coding is more valuable than two separate people who each know only one of those skills. This approach also provides insulation against industry disruption. If your entire career is built on a single credential in a specific field, you're vulnerable if that field undergoes rapid change. But if you've built a diverse skill portfolio, you can pivot more easily as the market evolves. The mindset shift here is crucial. Traditional education trained us to think of learning as something we complete. Skills-based learning requires us to see it as something we practice continuously, like physical fitness. You don't go to the gym for 4 years and then consider yourself fit for life. Why would you treat your professional capabilities any differently? This more flexible approach to career building is why younger generations are abandoning the old climb the corporate ladder mentality. They're building skill portfolios that allow them to create value in multiple contexts, giving them more leverage and freedom in how they structure their working lives. So what's the payoff here? How can you actually increase your earning potential without the traditional degree? The answer lies in focusing on what economists call your personal rate of return. Instead of spending $100,000 plus and 4 years on a degree that may or may not pay off, invest smaller amounts in acquiring specific, high-value skills that you can immediately monetize. Each skill you add increases your market value without the crushing burden of student debt. This approach allows you to start earning and building experience sooner, compounding your income over time instead of starting your earning years in a debt hole. When you combine that earlier start with continuous skill development, the financial advantage becomes even more dramatic. Lie number 5. Live below your means. While we've been talking about supercharging your income through skills, there's another financial myth lurking in your budget spreadsheets. What if I told you that living below your means, the golden rule of personal finance, could actually be the very thing preventing your financial growth? This counterintuitive truth explains why some people stay trapped in a cycle of scarcity despite following all the right rules. We've all heard it 1,000 times. Spend less than you earn. Cut back on lattes. Pinch pennies. This advice has been hammered into our brains since we got our first allowance. And don't get me wrong, avoiding reckless spending is important. But there's a massive problem with making frugality your primary financial strategy. The math of cutting expenses has a clear ceiling. You can only reduce your spending so much before you hit zero, or before your quality of life takes such a nosedive that you're miserable. Think about it. If you make $5,000 a month, the absolute maximum you could save is $5,000. And that's if you somehow manage to live on air and sunshine. Realistically, after housing, food, and basic necessities, most people can only cut back by 10 to 20% without serious lifestyle sacrifices. But here's where the traditional advice fails us. It focuses entirely on the wrong side of the wealth equation. When you obsess over living below your means, you're accepting that your means are fixed. This mindset creates an artificial ceiling on your financial potential and trains you to think small instead of thinking big. The alternative? Focus on expanding your means rather than just shrinking your life to fit within them. Look at Tasha, a graphic designer who was constantly stressed about money despite following strict budgeting rules. She tracked every penny, meal prepped religiously, and avoided all unnecessary expenses. But despite her discipline, she was barely saving $200 a month and felt financially stuck. Instead of cutting her budget even further, Tasha decided to invest in a specialized course on UX/UI design that cost $2,000, an amount that initially seemed extravagant given her frugal mindset. Within 6 months of completing the course, she landed projects that increased her monthly income by $1,500. That splurge on education paid for itself within 2 months and continued generating returns far beyond what any additional budget cutting could have achieved. The problem with extreme frugality is that it often stems from and reinforces a scarcity mindset. When you're constantly worried about not having enough, you make decisions from a place of fear rather than opportunity. You might skip networking events to save on the admission fee, pass up on tools that could make you more productive, or avoid investing in learning experiences that could multiply your income. This scarcity thinking doesn't just affect your earning potential, it can actually make you worse with money. Research shows that financial stress reduces cognitive function and decision-making ability. When your brain is constantly occupied with penny pinching, you have less mental bandwidth for creative thinking, strategic planning, and opportunity spotting, the very skills that build wealth. Now, I'm not suggesting you abandon budgeting or start living beyond your means. What I am proposing is a fundamental shift in perspective. See money as a tool for growth, not just something to be hoarded. This brings me to a concept that might sound counterintuitive: strategic lifestyle inflation. While mindless lifestyle inflation, automatically upgrading your life with every pay increase, is indeed a wealth killer, strategic lifestyle improvements can actually accelerate your financial growth. Consider Michael, who is working from home as a freelance writer. After years of making do with an uncomfortable setup at his kitchen table to save money, he finally invested $1,200 in a proper ergonomic desk, chair, and computer setup. His productivity increased by 25%, allowing him to take on more projects and increase his monthly income by over $2,000. The comfort upgrade paid for itself within 3 weeks. Or take Elena, who spent years avoiding any service that could be DIY'd. She cleaned her own house, did her own taxes, and handled all her own administrative tasks. When she finally hired a part-time virtual assistant for $500 monthly, she freed up 15 hours that she redirected toward client work, generating an additional $3,000 in monthly revenue. That's a 600% return on investment. The dividing line between smart and foolish spending isn't whether it's a necessity or a luxury. It's whether it moves you forward or holds you back. A $5 coffee that gives you the energy and focus to produce high-quality work might be a better investment than the $5 you saved by making coffee at home, but then spent an hour distracted and unfocused. What's particularly interesting is how employers are recognizing this principle. More companies are now offering financial wellness programs that include education on managing finances. These programs don't just teach employees to pinch pennies. They empower them to make informed decisions about spending and investing, fostering a culture of growth rather than mere frugality. This shift reflects an important truth. Financial well-being isn't just about savings rates. It's about creating a sustainable relationship with money that allows you to thrive, not just survive. The danger of the live below your means mantra is that it often gets misconstrued as live as far below your means as possible. This extreme interpretation creates a false virtue in deprivation and ignores the opportunity cost of not investing in yourself and your earning potential. Think about what happens when you focus exclusively on cutting expenses. You might choose the cheapest health insurance, then avoid going to the doctor when you need to because of the high deductible, potentially leading to bigger health and financial problems down the road. You might skip conferences or networking events that seem too expensive, missing connections that could have led to lucrative opportunities. You might refuse to pay for courses or education, depriving yourself of skills that could multiply your income for decades. You might hold on to outdated equipment, spending hours fighting with technology that wastes your most valuable resource, time. The truly wealthy understand that money is a means to an end, not the end itself. They make purchasing decisions based on value and return, not just price. They understand that some expenses are actually investments that pay dividends in the form of time saved, skills gained, connections made, or opportunities accessed. So what does a healthier approach look like? First, separate needs from wants, but then further divide your wants into consumption and investment. A designer handbag is consumption. It might bring joy but won't generate returns. A course that teaches you a marketable skill is an investment that can pay dividends for years. Second, set a minimum savings rate that's non-negotiable. But beyond that, focus on strategic spending that increases your earning potential rather than extreme frugality. Third, for every financial decision, ask, Will this expense make me more productive, skilled, connected, or capable of earning more in the future? If yes, it might be worth it even if it seems expensive in the moment. Fourth, track your return on investment for these growth expenditures. Did that conference actually lead to new clients? Did that course actually help you earn more? This accountability ensures you're making smart investments, not just rationalizing spending. The most dangerous downside of living below your means that nobody talks about is that it can keep you playing small. It can make you so focused on the tiny gains from cutting expenses that you miss the massive gains possible from growing your income. It can train you to think like a saver rather than a creator, an earner, or an investor. Expanding your means, the growth mindset approach to wealth. That mindset shift from saver to creator is where the real magic happens in your financial journey. But here's what most financial gurus won't tell you. The connection between your bank account and your brain runs deeper than you think. When you're constantly in penny-pinching mode, you're not just limiting your spending, you're literally rewiring your brain to overlook opportunities. Meet David, a software developer who was struggling to make ends meet despite following all the traditional financial advice. He tracked every dollar, cut out coffee shops, and brown-bagged his lunch every day. After 2 years of strict budgeting, he had saved an impressive $8,000, but felt burned out and stuck in his career. Then David made a decision that seemed counterintuitive. He invested $3,000 of his savings in an advanced coding bootcamp focused on AI development. Within 3 months of completing the program, he landed a new position that increased his salary by $25,000 annually. That's an 833% return on his investment in just the first year alone. This is what I call expanding your means instead of just living below them. It's about strategic spending that multiplies your earning capacity rather than just hoarding every dollar you make. Let's be clear about something fundamental. There's a massive difference between consumption spending and investment spending. Consumption spending is buying things that decrease in value or provide only temporary enjoyment, like that fancy dinner or the latest smartphone. Investment spending puts money toward things that either appreciate in value or increase your ability to earn more in the future. When you adopt this growth mindset approach to wealth, you start asking different questions. Instead of how can I spend less, you ask, how can I earn more? Instead of what can I cut from my budget, you ask, what can I invest in that will pay dividends for years to come? The traditional approach teaches us to focus on the expense side of our financial equation. Cut back, save more, pinch pennies. And while being mindful of wasteful spending is important, there's an upper limit to how much you can save. But there's virtually no ceiling on how much you can earn. The research is clear about the psychological impact of financial stress. According to research, 57% of employees cite finances as their number one source of stress. This constant worry doesn't just make you feel bad, it actually impairs your cognitive function. When your brain is preoccupied with financial scarcity, you have less mental bandwidth for creativity, problem solving, and spotting opportunities. Breaking this cycle requires strategic investment in yourself. Let me show you 4 categories of personal investment that consistently deliver massive returns. First, skills and knowledge. This is the most obvious category, but it's worth emphasizing. Courses, certifications, books, and mentorship that increase your specialized knowledge almost always pay off. But be strategic. Focus on skills that are both valuable in the marketplace and aligned with your strengths. Take Lauren, a marketing coordinator who invested $1,800 in a specialized data analytics course. Within 6 months, she had leveraged her new skills to secure a promotion that raised her salary by $12,000. That's a 667% return in her first year. Second, tools and technology that boost your productivity. This might mean a better computer, professional software, or even a more comfortable workspace. These investments can dramatically increase your output and quality of work. Consider Chris, a freelance video editor who is using outdated equipment. He invested $4,000 in a new editing setup with faster processing capabilities. The upgrade reduced his editing time by 40%, allowing him to take on 2 additional clients each month and increase his income by over $2,000 monthly. His investment paid for itself in just 2 months. Third, health and well-being. This might seem unrelated to finances, but it's perhaps the most fundamental investment. Better sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management directly impact your energy, focus, and cognitive function, all of which affect your earning capacity. Jamie, an entrepreneur, was working 70-hour weeks but feeling constantly exhausted and making costly mistakes. She invested in a health coach and gym membership totaling about $300 monthly. Within weeks, her energy levels improved dramatically, she was working more efficiently, and her business decisions became sharper. Her monthly revenue increased by $5,000 within 3 months, a 1,667% return. Fourth, network and relationships. Investing time and money in expanding your professional network can open doors to opportunities you might never discover otherwise. This might mean attending conferences, joining professional organizations, or even taking potential mentors to lunch. Alex spent $2,500 to attend an industry conference he couldn't really afford based on his budget. At that conference, he connected with a company that eventually offered him a position paying $30,000 more than his current job. That's a 1,200% return from a single weekend. Now, I'm not suggesting you throw financial caution to the wind and start spending lavishly on anything labeled as self-improvement. You need a framework to evaluate potential investments in yourself, just as you would for any other investment. Here's a simple 4-question framework I use. Question 1. Will this expenditure likely increase my earning capacity? Be honest here. That new gaming system probably won't boost your income, but a public speaking course might. Question 2. What's the potential return on this investment? Try to quantify it. If a $2,000 course could help you earn an extra $500 monthly, that's a 300% annual return, far better than most stock market investments. Question 3. How long until this investment potentially pays off? Some investments, like education, might take months or years to fully pay off. Others, like better tools, might show returns immediately. Question 4. What's the risk of this investment not paying off? No investment is guaranteed. Assess the likelihood of success and have a backup plan if things don't work out as expected. What makes this approach sustainable is that it doesn't reject frugality entirely. It just puts it in its proper place. Being mindful about consumption spending frees up resources for investment spending. The key is distinguishing between the two. A modern example of this growth-oriented approach is the integration of health and financial planning that's becoming increasingly popular. Financial advisors are now considering health-related factors in their advice, recognizing that your physical and mental well-being significantly impact your financial stability and long-term planning. This holistic approach acknowledges that all aspects of your life, health, skills, relationships, tools contribute to your financial success. One of my clients, Mia, exemplifies this balanced approach perfectly. She maintained a reasonable budget that eliminated wasteful spending, but allocated 15% of her income specifically for personal growth investments. Every quarter, she evaluated potential investments using the framework I just shared. Over 3 years, her income increased by 85%, while her peers who focused solely on savings saw average increases of just 12%. The math here is straightforward. Let's say you make $5,000 monthly. The traditional approach might help you cut expenses by $500, bringing your savings to $1,000 monthly. Over a year, that's $12,000 saved, certainly not bad. But what if instead of cutting that extra $500, you invested it in yourself? If that investment helped you increase your income by just 10%, which is conservative based on the examples we've seen, you'd be earning an extra $500 monthly. After a year, that's $6,000 in additional income. But unlike the one-time savings from cutting expenses, this additional income continues year after year, potentially increasing further as you continue investing in yourself. By year 5, the person who focused only on cutting expenses would have saved $60,000, assuming they didn't increase their savings rate. The person who invested in themselves would have earned an extra $30,000 in year 1. Then assuming just a 5% increase each subsequent year, they'd have earned over $165,000 in additional income, all while still saving their original $500 monthly, totaling $30,000 in savings. The gap only widens from there due to the compounding effect of increasing your earning capacity. Each boost in income provides more resources to invest in yourself, creating a powerful upward spiral. This growth mindset approach to wealth creation is particularly critical in today's rapidly changing economy. The skills and advantages that boost your earning potential today might be obsolete in 5 years. Continuous investment in yourself ensures you stay ahead of the curve rather than falling behind. So what's the real danger of focusing only on saving and not on earning more? It's not just that you'll accumulate wealth more slowly. It's that you might never reach your true financial potential at all. You could spend decades diligently saving small amounts while missing the opportunity to multiply your income and build real wealth. 11. Conclusion. So here's the truth. Financial wisdom isn't timeless. It evolves with the economy. The advice that worked for our parents operated in a completely different financial ecosystem. Today, we need to question everything we've been taught about money. This journey isn't about blaming our parents. They shared what worked in their world, a world of strong pensions, affordable housing, and savings accounts that actually grew wealth. But clinging to these outdated principles in today's economy is like trying to win a digital war with stone tools. The path to building genuine wealth starts with questioning these financial truths. Which outdated money beliefs are holding you back? Is it keeping all your savings in a bank? Relying on a single income stream? Avoiding all debt? Whatever it is, challenging these beliefs is your first step toward true financial freedom. Don't just accept financial advice because it's been passed down for generations. Your financial future